And this is the truth. So it's only the definition of what you call conflict now, that maybe there's an agenda by this government. So what happens, Latif, is that when now this grass grow during now drought, or may say dry seasons. So when dry seasons come, so the places you have been grazing, of course, gets depleted. So what happens? You move towards where there's grass, because you cannot allow your cow to die. So you move towards where there's grass. So the Turkanas move in, the Pokots move in, the Samburus move in. What do you expect? We all meet there.
Clash.
What do you expect? Clash. Why? Because there is disorder. Disorder of accessing these resources. I use that word here in Spice, and I will use it forever. That what is missing in this no man's land is order of accessing those resources. So if it is water, the Pokot can go to the water. Turkanas want also to access that water. Samburus want to access that water or that grass. So what happens? It depends on who has the muscle.
Yeah.
And what's the muscle? The muscle of the gun.
Yeah.
And there's a fight. So whether you want to call that on banditry, cat wrestling, Morocco, or whatever, but the truth of the matter is it is resource-based. And that's why I proposed here, Latif, my good friends. And I said, my suggestion is what was done in Uganda. This area is known, it's Kenya. It is our country. Put in army to live and stay. Latif, I said this earlier. What will the army do? They will bring order in terms of accessing these resources. So that if Pokot come to access the grass, there is order. When they are going to, for example, drink the water, the army will say, Pokot, you people will drink this water within this time. Let's say in the morning, maybe between 9 or between 7 and 10. Then when Pokot get out of the water hole, then the Turkanas come and access the water or the Samburu. I don't blame Samburu. I don't blame Turkana. I don't blame Pokot. It's access of resources. And if those resources are not there, if the cows are not there, you are dead. Cow is religion. Cow is economy. Cow is your life. For you to marry, for you to be called Latif, you must have a cow or animals. If you are not having a cow, then you become a troublesome, as according to that proverb from the other people. So it is access to resources.
But why army?
Good question. Army, because...
Why not police? I mean, why do you have this low regard for the police service?
I don't have, I have even more low regard to police now after killing about 50 people in the last few weeks in peaceful demonstrations. But before that, if you go to the larger thinking, which is in my place, army came and did a lot of good job during Kibaki's time when they came to West Pokot for operation. They brought in, army come with additional staff. They come in with building of roads. They come in with building of schools, drilling boreholes. They come in with some additional things which also promote peace. And that is what was done by Kibaki during his time. And it has taught us a different. And that's why there's that lull of peace between when Kibaki came to power up to now. But what I am against, it is even what is being propagated as the banditry. When you say banditry, you really completely misunderstand it. And you may not even think about, say, providing of resources. You think about, okay, banditry is what? It's just like robbery with violence in Nairobi here and something like that. Then you come up with heavy machinery
Weapons.
to be able to kill people. Like when this government took it as banditry, you know what happened? They came there with that mentality of banditry and killed 200 animals, 200 cows of Pokot, which they have never even owned up to today in February, on 2nd February this year.
They killed cows.
200, I said here, 200 cows. Why? Because, this is a banditry. They killed 200 cows. And then arresting people anyhowly. And calling everybody bandit. And now even doing what? Intimidating their leaders.
Yeah.
The leaders who want to support, you intimidate them. As what? As sponsors. You know what they said about me, and they arrested me. And I'm a peacemaker. Latif. That's why I was elected. And my people know that in Pokot. I'm just a peacemaker. What happened? I just went to bring peace. And by that, because of that issue of banditry and blackmail and propaganda and fitina, they said, the leaders are the sponsors. We are not sponsors. We are supposed to bring the peace. So when you intimidate leaders like that, then you misunderstand the resource conflict. And it will never end, Latif.
If we broaden this discussion beyond, say, Pokot, beyond the Kerio Valley, and we move towards Marsabit, we talk about the Samburu in that direction. When you have this conflict, what you say is absolutely true. There is conflict about resources. And some of them, one can look at the situation from a theoretical perspective and come to the conclusion that they may be easy to resolve. But then there is something else that we see. Every time there is an attack on communities who actually have cattle, and those cattle disappear, that isn't a conflict over resources, that's theft. People come in, they shoot, they kill, and people lose their animals. That's a completely different discussion. This one of resources, perfectly understood, and it happens. And the planning around it is not beyond the government and or with its resources. It's not beyond them. Making sure that you cater for the specific needs of communities that are pastoralists. Specifically, it is not beyond them. But what we have seen clearly, enough attention, enough resources, if they're budgeted for, never reach the destination, because it can't have reached the destination if we're talking about this same thing we've been talking about for the last God knows how many years. However, that having been said, are you saying that in the neighboring counties you do not have leaders like yourself, political leaders, who have a mindset such as yours, to get their people to understand this? Because if you say the government isn't doing what they're supposed to do, why don't you leaders take the lead and talk to yourselves and find a solution?
You know, City, the things we talk, I talk to you now. I'm also talking to the government. They're also listening me. They're also watching me. Even if the president or the minister does not watch me because they are busy, there are people are watching me and they're listening to what I'm saying. They actually also follow me, some of them. And therefore, we are communicating to them. What I've said here, I've said also to them, even in offices and the little forums we have. And there's some tendency of this government fearing people, fearing citizens and leaders.
What do you mean?
They don't encourage meetings, consultations. They like fear leaders and people. So what I have said, I've given that example. It has been done in Uganda City. Very good example. You don't need to go to Europe to get some of these examples that I'm saying. Organized access to resources, whether it is water or whether it is grass. Uganda has done it.
Done by government.
Done by government itself and its army in Uganda. And Uganda was more, Uganda had more area which was ungovernable than Kenya. I've given you that, and if you look at it, it's not even like a county. It's just from as I said, Sokoto Marmara after Marlal. Then take all that belt, coming to Kapedo, Lomelo, up to almost, then take it like that, Kainuk, Takwel, take it until Loima. It's not really very big, but it's negligence. No, we've said this many times. Why it's not being done? As you say, even my colleagues from Samburu say the same thing I'm saying. If you call them today here,
they'll repeat the same.
They will repeat the same. They might blame Pokot, but they will say the same. That there's a problem.
City is asking. So you, as a peacemaker, and the other leaders who also say the same thing, why can't you come together and put these structures in place?
But government does it. It's never done by civilians like ourselves.
Right, but have you done that? Have you had a conversation as leaders from these 6 counties and said, this is something, this is our issue? Then take this to the county commissioners in the area, because it doesn't even require maybe talk.
No.
It's about organization of how to access
county
this.
Government does nothing. It's supposed to be the president. Let me tell you, my friend Latif, and that's the difference between me and you.
County commissioner is presenting the president. Of the town, isn't he?
No. Let me tell you, we've been in this field for a while. We are born into these problems. It requires policy direction from the president. President himself must pronounce himself. And I was giving you an example of Uganda. You know what Museveni did? He actually appointed his wife to be the minister for Karamoja Affairs to show the seriousness. And it's not about having a big eye or a big gun. It's just having the people there, organizing access to these resources. If I'm in Uganda, I've been there myself.
Yeah.
Our people they live in Uganda.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when cows are going to drink water, they are being overseen by army. I'm telling you this, it happens. So when the Pokot drive the animals to a waterhole, the army are watching. Let me tell you this. The army are watching to make sure that the other side of Karamoja, for example, Pian or Bokora, those are sub-clans of Karamoja.
Yeah.
They don't come to ambush Pokots. So they oversee that. And then when they finish, they tell you to drive your cows to where your home is or safe. It does happen. That is why there's a lot of peace or fair peace in Karamoja. And Karamoja is bigger than what I'm saying. This is very small, Latif, very small.
That area is big.
Uganda is big.
In Kenya, the military was deployed from the barracks, and that was even sanctioned by Parliament, and you sit in Parliament. The military was deployed to these 6 counties.
We didn't sanction. That was they used a different constitution. We did one for Congo, but not this one. They sneaked this one.
You were
informed.
You were informed.
Yes.
And you accepted.
No, it didn't require any debate and vote.
You took the information.
Yes,
the military
we have the information.
Is on the ground. Okay. Of course, the command is of the police, but the military is involved in the security operation. We had the Minister for Defense here, Eden Duale, and he said, my officers are on the ground. They are reporting to the county commander and to the police bosses there, but we are aware of what's happening. We are supporting them not only in peace, but also we are supporting them in development. If there are bridges that need to be built, if there are schools that need to be built, if there are hospitals that need to be built, to bring order and normalcy in these 6 counties. And thereafter, if need be, we shall stay on. Eden Duale said the military will stay in these counties for as long as it takes. So the military is on the ground.
Let me ask this.
And this came from the president. So you're saying the president needs to be involved. The president has already pronounced himself on this. The ministry is involved. His CS for defense has been ordered. And the generals have been told, send officers on the ground. Shida iko wapi?
Let me share with you this, Latif. And I want to challenge Honorable Duale. When he says military on the ground, we're building schools, I want to challenge him to come to Chesekon Division in West Pokot County. This is a division between Pokot and Marakwet. That division is desolate for the word. Nobody lives. Why? Because of this conflict. Right? Nobody lives.
People moved out.
People moved away out of that division. The nearest you can get people, right, is another division, which is next. I want to challenge him. What is going on in Chesekon Primary School? And I want you, Latif, to write so that when he comes, because as I told you, there's a fear. This government fears leaders and people. So even if we book an appointment, we will not see them. So we come to see them through here. And I want to ask you, I want to give you those schools. I want to give you Chesekon Primary School, Chesekon Secondary School, and the TTI in Chesekon Division. Go and ask yourself who is there.
Who's there? Tell us.
Nobody. No student. No people. Right? And about 7 schools, nobody. Other schools, 50 students, 10 students, nobody. Go towards Asal Division, which is again in West Pokot. People are living in terror. In terror. So when you come and tell Kenyans, then I want to challenge him and ask him, where are they? Where are this army? If they're building schools, where is the army to bring back Chesekon Primary School? I'm also challenging my colleague, the Minister for Education. We used to be in last parliament together. It's a good gentleman, old man, Majoku. I want to ask him whether he knows that there's no student in Chesekon Primary School. And that's why I'm saying it's a serious matter, Latif, because across the river, which is River Chesekon, you have children going to school in Liter, which is the other side of Chesekon, which is Marakwet. Why? Because they have KPR. The other side of the Pokot, nobody. We've said this many times. Nobody does it. Why? Because we believe that they have accepted and they have in their mind that the problem is Pokot. The criminal is Pokot. The bandit is Pokot. And that is where we have gone wrong, Latif. So when my colleague, Honorable Duale, is a very good friend of mine, we used to be in parliament together, was my leader majority, we worked together very much, and we really improved this country during our time with him. But I'm challenging him. So where are this army? Why are they not building Chesekon Primary School? Why are they not building a Chesekon Secondary School? Where? And we have proposed with them, and that's why, Latif, I sit on that matter of KPR. I had a proposal and say, look, even if all these things are done, why don't we start with schools? And I had proposed 3 KPR in every of those schools at the border, right? I had proposed like that. Last week, there were some Marakwet bandits drove into my constituency, a place called Tarak in Chesekon, in Kameli location, and stole a number of cows. You know what happened? Our people, using their own hands, follow these animals, being assisted by very good wishers of Marakwet to bring back the cows. Using their own hands, they risk their lives. And we told the minister, please give these people their security. If your police are not there, give them KPR. That is why I want to challenge you and Latif and tell you, this idea of army are there, where? Are you sending them to headquarters of counties? For example, if they are in some headquarters of counties, that's what we are talking about. Ask them, where are the army in this no man's land? Because that is where I want them to go and stay.
Are you saying, Mheshimiwa, in that your entire constituency of Pokot South, you have not seen military officers?
My constituency is fairly peaceful, if I were to say. My own constituency where I come from, I have only a little one location which is a little bit disturbed, but not very. But the entire of Pokot Central, which is our people.
Yeah.
You know, we have no borders as Pokot.
So in Pokot Central, are there
Pokot Central,
officers?
it's almost 50% is inhabited. 50% of Pokot Central is inhabited. That is
Uninhabited.
Yes,
Uninhabited.
uninhabited. Because of what? Because of this security you're talking about.
Are there military officers on the ground?
Where? I'm asking where.
Let's take a break. 26 minutes to 8. The Honorable David Pkosing is the MP for Pokot South constituency. He's the chairman of the Public Investments Committee on Commercial and Energy Affairs. He's one of the leaders in Azimio. He was briefly in the bipartisan talks committee. And even before they met, he was out of the committee. Now we are talking about forming another new committee.
I'm not yet out. Maybe not.
Now there's a new committee. We'll ask him whether he wants to join that new committee. That is, we'll have the new talks.
I like that.
Bomayangu.go.ke is the government's affordable housing portal. The government wants to have affordable housing projects in each of the 290 constituencies, including Pokot South and even Pokot Central.
I don't trust.
There will be affordable housing. If you want to participate in this, log on to bomayangu.go.ke and register and begin your journey towards home ownership.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If I look at the Premier League table, Manchester City is on top. Arsenal, number 2 in the table. Absolutely. How did
KTN. Welcome home. Ushindi cleans like no other. It lathers more and lasts long. Ushindi, a long-lasting bar that removes all stains easily. As we feed the brains of our little ones in school, the Standard newspaper takes pride in knowing that we are making a mark in the growth of their minds through the newspapers in education program that steers them in the right direction, and we are proud of it.
The teacher facilitates, the teacher guides the lesson, gives directions. The learner now becomes the central part of learning. So during that, you see when they benefit, the learner benefits more than when the teacher is the main presenter. So it actually benefits learners more. It exploits their potential, their learning skills, the communication, how they collaborate, how they assist one another, and how they create and innovate things here and there. It perfectly helps because, for example, like the NIE, we can give them a newspaper and tell them to read maybe page 14 and page 15. Then they do a summary of the story that is written there. So from the summary, you know, it even provokes their thinking, some creativity. It makes learning fun in class. And when learners are given an opportunity to explore learning under any browsing in the internet without proper guidance, they tend to be predisposed to unnecessary and age-restricted sites. But NIE is perfect for their learning. So there's nothing negative that can interfere with their morals, their values. So I would recommend that as much as we talk of this print media, the audio visuals, NIE is very good for this kind of level of learning, the primary school and junior secondary school.
To adopt and sponsor a school class on the NIE program, it will only cost 14,400 shillings per term or 43,200 shillings per year. For more information, please contact Ronnie Ouma on 0720-809-823 or rouma at standardmedia.co.ke. Newspapers in education. Readers are leaders. Do you want to get this song on your phone? Dial star 207 star 80 hash, and for 20 shillings only, it's yours. Get this and so much more only on Star Digit. KTN, welcome home.
I'm not crying for army to be in Kapanguri or West Pokot. And my good friend CT just asked me. I'm not crying for them to be in West Pokot. Right? I'm just crying for services. And equal and fairness. Fairness by government. That if you arm another community, you arm everybody. If you don't arm any. Don't arm Marakwet against Pokot or Turkana against Pokot. So don't arm anybody. Bring the police to take care of that. Number two, I have given you the area where the army should actually be stationed. Let them live there, bring development and roads. I've given you the no man's land. And we will get rid of it. And I propose for 15 years. Let them stay there for 15 years, 20 years. From that time, you'll have got people going to school. So you'll have eradicated this non-schooling generation. So you'll get everybody going to school. And anybody who has gone to school in West Pokot and Turkana, you will not find them in having guns. So you take them away, but cover this area for 15 years. Then even if they had guns, those guns will have rusted and so on. So you'll have done a lot of things to be able to take care of that. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not crying for army to be in Kapanguria. No. Let them go to the no man's land, but let fairness be in West Pokot. My friend said, why are other leaders maybe being heard more than Pokot leaders? That's a very good question. And what's my answer? My answer is very simple, In this government, they have taken over. They're actually misleading the president. I will say this.
There are people who are misleading the president.
Yes. They are too close to the president. And therefore, they're likely to mislead the president. The president is busy with other national issues and the economy and so on, and demonstrations and so on, national demonstrations maybe. The president is engaged. They are misleading.
To mislead him to, Moshima, to mislead him to think what, though? That everything
to tell him that
the
was a Pokot. Everybody is... If you say who is a bandit, quickly somebody will think the Pokot is a bandit. So they are closer to government. They're closer to government. If you go to Turkana, they have a leader in State House. If you go to Marakwet, they have a leader in cabinet. The Pokots, we are nowhere near. And that's why we are thinking that these people who are next to the president are misleading the president. Maybe the president will hear us one day. Because lastly, let me ask you, why don't you give people fairness? The Turkana fairness, the Marakwet fairness, and the Pokot fairness. And what do I mean? If you give them KPR, keep all of them. If you don't give all of them. Then they will feel that they are part of Kenya. So to me, that is what I'm saying. And in terms of Azimio and so on, yes, we have raised these fundamental issues, community issues, right? Very serious community issues. Which what you are saying, I'm also one of the leaders of Azimio, and I'm raising it. And that's why I was put in that bipartisan, Latif, I was put in that bipartisan that failed. Government actually made it to fail. I was put in that bipartisan. Why? So that I can bring up these issues of the North, the insecurity issues, fundamentally. And of course, I studied in my master's level. I did actually conflict resolution and studies, and peace studies in the University of Bradford, the best university in Europe in terms of conflict resolution. And therefore, that is why our principles, our party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, so it fit that I should sit so that I can bring some of these very salient issues that people don't talk about in Nairobi, conflict issues.
You're an expert on peacemaking.
Yes, I am an expert and a practitioner. Before I became an MP, I used to work in the entire area I'm talking about. That's why I really know this area. I used to work under Catholic Justice and Peace Commission for like 9 years. In the entire area, Turkana, Marakwet, Baringo, West Pokot, as a peace coordinator. And I studied peace. So I am a practitioner as well as a professional. And that's why we are saying. We are saying very objective things. That's why, as a Mio, so it fit that I should sit in that bipartisan to bring up those issues. I'm the one to bring up those issues.
Every time I'm thinking of communities where one constantly reads of conflict. And I'm thinking of the area of Marsabit and the communities that exist there. One talks of 2 or 3 communities who seem to be more populous, and I've heard of more. One here of Gabra, one here of Borana, one here of Burji. They're the much smaller community. Now, Again, in these communities, you will hear of conflict about resources. You go to Tana River, again you hear talk about conflict and about resources. However, there's something else that always creeps in. There seem to be more conflict in these areas depending on the leaders who are there at that particular point in time. And one has no option but to come to the conclusion that there are some warmongering leaders who seem to prefer direct conflict than not. Every once in a while, when there was, should we say, limited rain in Turkana, there was always news of conflict between the Pokomo, the Wardei, and again, it was pasture, water, same. Somewhere along the line, one doesn't hear those conflicts that often, but there was a time they were constantly there. Now, you go to Marsabit, in the recent past, there's been so much conflict. The government is determined to intervene, took armed security, but leaders were arrested. Again, when you look into the conflict, you cannot run away from the presence of certain types of people who are in leadership at that time. So one gets the distinct impression that there are people who actually fan these conflicts.
My good brother, City, I agree with you almost 100%. That, not on everything, but on the fact that you say there's conflict during certain particular leaders. Let me tell you, that is true. But you have to ask yourself, why do those particular leaders behave in that manner? Right? Why do they behave in that manner? That particular time, not all the time. Because those leaders are still there. So why is it that today now there's more peace and those leaders are there? Sometimes where the problem, Latif, and I will give you a very good example of even West Pokot or the conflict in the north. The conflict in the north has been so much there and problems and focusing on certain leaders, including myself. Right? I say, oh, maybe Pkosing is funding this, maybe Pkosing is sponsoring this, and so on and so forth. You have heard about
your
that.
name has definitely come up as somebody who funds problems.
Yes, my name has, and if you look at it and you go deeper into it, that's propaganda. It's not true. I'm a very peaceful Kenyan city. The problem is where I will not keep quiet. The problem is I'm talking. So when you talk, the same people who don't want the Kenyans to hear that there's a problem want to malign your name so that either you keep quiet or you are arrested. When there is the problem, City and Latif and Do, the problem is fairness. When communities, city, have no fairness, you will find a leader talking about them, whether you like it or not. And the leader who talks and tries to propagate those problems and bring those problems out, you know what happens? You know, the system would like to paint them negatively, as you say, so that you say, okay, because of that certain particular leader, I was not born today, Latif and City. I didn't become a leader today.
Latif, City, and Ndu.
Ndu?
Yes.
City and Ndu.
Thank you very much.
And yes, Ndu.
Yes, thank you.
Now, let me explain this so that it's understood and I'm also understood. Because that propaganda might also make Kenyans to misunderstand me. I'm a very peaceful. I used to be in seminary, City and Do, and I used to be in seminary. I almost became a priest. Really, yes. I almost became a father in Catholic. I'm really a peaceful person. The problem is when you see injustice, Latif,
you speak up.
You speak up, like what I'm saying in West Pokot. Let's go to West Pokot at the moment, and you come and tell me whether I'm a warmonger or I'm a
cattle rustler.
I'm a cattle rustler. When you see other communities are armed against your own, what are you supposed to do? City, am I supposed to keep quiet?
No, you cannot possibly keep quiet.
When I speak, you know what happened? I'm arrested. I said, no, Pkosing, no, Pkosing, you're funding.
But
I'm being intimidated.
Arming, though,
and then they remove my security. No, I dropped myself when I was coming here. And why? Because they're Pkosing. So leaders, some leaders, not all of them, some leaders talk about their own people. Why? Because of unfairness that they see or injustice that see that is being meted on their people.
Last year, before the Kenya Council administration came into office, for a couple of months or I think some years, there was no KPR at all in this region.
No, there was.
All KPR had been disarmed.
Yes, there was. They were all disarmed.
They were all disarmed.
Correct.
But then there was a flare-up of insecurity and this cattle rustling. So it wasn't because the Turkanas were armed against the Pokot or the Samburus against the Pokot or the Pokot against the Marakwet. Why was there violence then? when there was no armed KPR.
There was
And even then, you're not talking about that everybody else was attacking the Pokot. Even the Pokot, armed bandits coming from the Pokot side were even invading the other side as well.
I don't refute that, Latif and City. I don't refute about that. But you see, you might say that was then there was whether there was conflict,
There's equilibrium.
balance of power. You would say there's equilibrium.
Let me ask.
say
Let
with
me
equilibrium.
take that word of yours, equilibrium.
Some say that it was actually not equilibrium.
So what was it?
That banditry attacks exacerbated or propagated by the Pokot were more.
Because everybody is talking against Pokot. And then you think that it's more. It's not more, Latif and Andu. That is why I offered you. I offered you. And I said, please visit these places. Then you'll come and say, really, the Pokot people are really suffering. We, everybody who's surrounding us is complaining about us. So they have more mouths. And now they are more in government than ourselves. So they do what? They propagate negativity about Pokot.
Let me just ask
And
you-
when somebody stands, when somebody stands, everybody would like to say, let's do a propaganda against that person so that we remove him from this so that everything is quiet. That is why I'm being attacked.
For what? This is what confuses me a little bit, because here you are saying that in a situation where somebody stands up and speaks against
Yes.
what's going on, the propagandists, as you
propagandists.
say, want to come in and keep this person silent.
Correct.
This person being you. To what end? For what benefit would they be doing that?
You see, I take an example of West Pokot, where I come from. And that is where I was born, and I know the propaganda there much. So, I am thinking, which I might be wrong, that the people surrounding, or the people now in government, for now, have done a lot of propaganda against Pokots. That, you know what, the Pokot is the problem. And they have even ganged up and say, why is Pokot fighting Turkana? Why is Pokot fighting Samburu? Why is Pokot fighting Marakwet? So the Pokot is the problem.
Yeah.
Right? So they have concluded, including maybe even convinced you. People
Well,
here.
they have profiled the Pokot as being the most warlike.
Yeah, and bandits.
Yes, but
so in that so that I don't lose her point.
Yeah.
The reason why he's saying maybe what is then going on? Why are they silencing? For what benefit are they silencing people like me? Now that they have bought that agenda, that Pokot, they have really concluded. The government has really concluded and say Pokot is the problem. So what happens? Let us arm Turkana. Are you listening?
I'm listening.
To defend themselves.
Yes, because the against the Pokot.
Yeah.
So let us arm Marakwet to defend them against Pokot. Let us arm Samburu against Pokot. So in that manner, they don't arm who?
The Pokot.
They don't arm the Pokot. So when you raise up your hand and say, hey, look here, 1 minute, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Then they want to silence you so that, and the government is like, if we arm Pokot, then the Marakwet will cry, the Turkanas will cry, everybody will cry against government. So government does not actually want to arm Pokot. So they don't want anybody to speak that, please, Pokot are suffering. Because they don't want to arm Pokot.
Mheshimiwa, there's a perspective here. It appears to me that in all these communities that you mentioned, there are rogue elements whom we can refer to as bandits, meaning every community has their brand of bandits.
Correct.
All right?
Yes.
But then, not all these communities have neighbors across the border, like in Uganda, who were known to be fully armed. I mean, armed. The Pokot in Uganda, the Pokot in Kenya, they're Pokots.
Correct.
Okay? It's like the Samia in Kenya, Samia in Uganda, they're Samia. There is no Masai in Kenya, Masai, the same people. Now, if you come from a country that was as militarized as Uganda, and then you have the rumors and innuendos about the sort of arms that your cousins and counterparts in Uganda had, one can understand how this narrative of the Pokot in Kenya being armed can be propagated, because that side were definitely armed. By the time the army was being brought to pacify it, they were not carrying these pea shooters and these G3 guns where you fire one and wait for 5 minutes before you can reload. None of those things. Okay? They were adequately armed. However, if propaganda is being used to ensure that the Pokot are painted in the worst light possible, why don't you also engage in fighting this propaganda so that you can actually tell your side of the story? Because why I mentioned Marsabit, why I mentioned Tana River, they had similar issues. These things we're talking about, and these are people who, I mean, I've come across places where people herd cows with AKs. How I know it's an AK? Because I ask, what sort of gun is this? I'm told it's called an AK. Okay? So, that people have ammunition in this country, it is not a secret. But the story of the Pokot It's a narrative that has taken root, and that narrative needs to be changed. And the only people who can change that narrative, Mheshimiwa, is you and your fellow leaders who come from that region.
I thank you, City, and we will employ you also to help us. No, it's true because, let me tell you, we have been really misunderstood. We're saying ourselves, we live in a distorted image, right? So when you see any Pokot, you see a bandit. Why everybody is doing a campaign against us negatively? Can the leaders themselves and anybody do? Yes, we've been, and that's why I'm here. And when you try to do that, CT and Latif, you are painted. The way now I was painted, or I'm being painted. Pkosing is a funder or the sponsor. I've been given. This is the first time. This is my third time in Parliament. This is the first time I'm given a lot of names, which are political names. Why? Because I stood firm, and I'm going to stand firm, and I'm not going to be intimidated, Latif. Whether it's me or they remove Askaris against me, I will still speak about the truth. Until if government does not hear, God will hear. Because what alternative do you have? So what am I supposed to do? So what are we supposed to do? To talk or to keep quiet? If you keep quiet, then your people are dead. And we're elected by people, CT. I'm not elected by trees.
Do you know why we mention leaders and communities? I want to give you an example of a community in this country who the propaganda against painted them in the worst possible light. They were not just considered bandits, they were considered terrorists, the Somali community. Yeah. But look at how the Somali community have moved from being known as camel herders and people who are pastoralists to businessmen. Okay? Full circle. And they come from a terrain that is hostile. Semi-arid, some of parts of your country, but for them, the bulk of where they come from is genuinely, fairly hostile. The climate is bad. Sure. But slowly, but very surely, and they were not huge in numbers, but look at how they've turned around their community. You cannot ignore that community when I talk about business in this country. They are going into industry. They are going into banking. There is no sector that they're not going into. You can't ignore. But the reason is because the leadership, beyond even the political leadership, its community leadership have charted a path and have ensured that they work together. Now, if everybody's against the Pokot, are the Pokots working together? Or from among the Pokots, do you have divisions so that everybody is more or less moving in the direction they see fit?
You have said a very fundamental thing, and I agree with you. Almost everything today I've agreed with him. Sometimes I don't, but today I've agreed with him. Maybe because it started with Somali. Somali proper, I don't know. But you see, I agree with you in the sense that, of course, Somalis have really tried, really it's true, to turn themselves to become now business people in this country. In fact, I think they are now number one. Kikuyus used to be seen as business people. Now it's Somalis. But I want to say this, if you bring it to Pokot in the same context, we are very few. In terms of community, to be able to penetrate into this business in this country, we are very few. In fact, if you say how many people have gone to school in Pokot, to be able to then to marshal that, we're very few. If you go turn the other side of Somalia, if you come to Parliament, there are very many, there are millions in terms of population. And then something advantage with Somalis is that most Somalis are actually diaspora. Even if they're in this country, they're in diaspora, so they send money. So they are liquid, they're more liquid than Pokot. So how many Pokots? If you say how many millionaires in Pokot, it's counted. I'm not sure whether if
you're like 3 of you.
Not even more than 10. How many millionaires? There are more than 10. So, and that is why we are crying and saying, we ourselves, we are not even thinking about business. We are saying, government, bring us education. Please come and cover up this area, which is no man's land. Take our children to school. Maybe in another 50 years or 100 years, we'll come to the middle class. Maybe 50% of Somalis are in middle class. And, so there is no city in the world that has no Somali. By the way, I'm shocked. I've been to all over the world, most places in the world. UK Somalis. And Somalis designed something which nobody has designed. Communication. I think Somalis are number one in communication. Even how to send money. You can send money anywhere in Somalia. Anywhere in the world. Even in those cities that you don't even think they are cities. There's Somalis there. So I think, so bring that to Pokot. We are millions of years away from Somali. Our numbers are just, how many are we?
Must you remain millions of years away?
We will not remain. But if we are also helped one thing, we will, let me tell you, you dream what your own mind can reach. Yeah. To begin with, we want to dream about education. We want to dream about sweeping, mobbing up all these people. And I've given you a strategy. which is very cheap strategy.
Put the military on the ground.
Put the military to stay here and build schools, water, hospitals, and then that will allow our children to go to school. In another 50 years, 100 years,
Things will change.
we will be here.
I have an opportunity to disagree with you now. Thank you for agreeing with me throughout, but let me disagree with you.
Okay.
You should start with uniting all the Pokot leaders. If you all speak with one voice, this very thing you're saying will be achieved faster. It must be known that all the leaders of the Pokot people are saying exactly the same thing.
Are you united?
Yes, we are. And we are saying the same thing. What I'm telling you.
How come it's only you here?
So that's a good question. And that does not mean that when you hear me, doesn't mean that we are not united.
Actually, it
Yes,
does.
call others. Call others, yeah, they will tell you exactly what I'm telling you, that we need these places to be covered, right? And then so in terms of Pokot, we are very united, all of us.
And you speak the same
We
language.
speak the same thing. In terms of our people, we defend our people 100%. In this idea of well, maybe because I'm talking and so on is different. If I invite them also, they will talk about the same thing.
Saying thank you very much for joining us again today. And call Duale, he's your friend. Find out where the military is. He may tell you, that if you don't see them on the ground, then you can tell him, no, they're not there.
You can
Oh,
say
yes,
where
they
they
are.
went.
I'll call him.
The Honorable David Pkosing is the MP for Pokot South constituency. He is also chairman of a Parliamentary Accountability Committee, the Public Investments Committee on Commercial and Energy Affairs. He's been our guest this morning. Keep it here for more. In the next hour, we talk about food protests and food demonstrations. Former Laikipia Governor Derito Moredi is in the studio.